Hey friends, welcome back to the channel and happy Friday if you guys are watching this on release day. I have another book haul for you. Good old Book Outlet was having a sale again, and of course, like I've said before, I have absolutely no self-control when it comes to books. I don't think I should apologize for it. So let's hop right into it. I have quite a few here, so I'm just going to go into the synopsis, a little bit of each one, and hopefully there's something here that you guys can add to your own TBRs. So first, I have two Jack White books. These are books in the Dream of Eagle series, which you guys know I am rereading this year. So we have book number 4, which is The Saxon Shore, and book number 5, part 1, The Fort at River's Bend. So I got these at a really good price. They're still fairly expensive through Amazon and through Indigo and all of that. So I'm always really happy when these show up on Book Outlet or when I can get them used, because you know, there's a ton of books in this series and to buy them all new would be a small fortune. So happy to have those. And then you guys know that I read The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor not long ago and gave it a full 5 stars. It's one of my favorite reads so far this year in 2021. So I went and bought a bunch of her other books, and I'm hoping these ones are going to be just as good. So first we have The Chalk Man, and I've heard so many good things about this book. So really hoping this is going to be another 5-star. And don't want to go through the whole synopsis, but the little blurb on the top of the inside flap, I was totally hooked. So it says, "None of us ever agreed on the exact beginning. Was it when we started drawing the chalk figures, or when they started to appear on their own? Was it the terrible accident, or when they found the first body?" So that's all I needed to know about this. I heard about this book recently over on Are You Into Horror, which is Richard's channel, and he really enjoyed this book, so I'm excited to read this one. And then these other two by CJ Tudor I haven't heard anything about. So the first one is The Hiding Place, and it says on the top, "The worst day of his life wasn't when his sister went missing. It was the day she came back." So that one sounds really good as well. And then the third one I got from her is The Other People. And just a quick little blurb on the back here, it says, "We are people just like you, people to whom terrible things have happened. We found solace, not in forgiveness or forgetting, but in helping each other find justice." So all of these kind of have that sort of true crime thriller kind of feel to them, and that was the same thing with The Burning Girls, but I found that book was a real page turner. So I was excited to find these ones, and like I said, hopefully I enjoyed these books just as much as that one. And next I have 3 books by Tananarive Due, and I have her other book, The Good House, which I got a few hauls back. I haven't read it yet, but this author is such a buzzy author. Everybody seems to love her writing, and the synopses of her books just sound absolutely fabulous. So the first one that I have by her is The Between. Haven't heard anything about this one yet, but it sounds so good. It sounds like a real page turner. So here we follow Hilton, who as a boy was drowning, and his grandmother saved him from drowning, but she sacrificed her own life. And Hilton is starting to believe that, you know, his borrowed time basically is starting to run out. So his wife is an elected African-American judge in Dade County, Florida, and they start receiving racist hate mail from a man that she had once prosecuted. And so there's like a psychotic sort of stalking that's going on here, and Hilton has his own sort of mental emotions that he's dealing with. And so this just sounds really good. I'm hoping, like the other CJ Tudor ones, that this is going to be a real page turner. Let me know down below if you've read this one. And the next one by Tananarive Due is Freedom in the Family, a mother-daughter memoir of the fight for civil rights. So I think kind of the title speaks for itself. So this is, I don't believe it's a fiction, it's a nonfiction. It seems that the author wrote about what her own ancestors went through. And here's the thing I find with these kinds of books. I find anything to do with slavery or anything like that is extremely hard to read. I really have an emotional time with it. So of course this is an important topic, it's an important read, but I always struggle with these kinds of books, even though I love to learn about history, and especially with Black and Indigenous history that of course myself I can't really relate to, but it's something that I want to understand more. So I think this one's going to be a hard one, but wanted to pick it up anyway. And I think at some point I would like to do a whole TBR that's just on non-fiction but really important topics that we need to talk about. And the last one that I got by Tananarive Due is My Soul to Keep, and this one is a little bit different from the other two, so this one has more of a supernatural feel, and she's a fantastic writer, I think, when it comes to that sort of thing. So here we follow Jessica, and she meets the love of her life, David, who she thinks is just kind of too good to be true. And then people close to Jessica start dying, and she soon finds out that her husband belongs to a 400-year-old Ethiopian cult, and he and his brethren had sold their souls, and now she is in a fight to keep her own soul. So that sounds right up my alley. Again, this is such a buzzy author, and I'm really hoping that I'm going to vibe with her writing, but just, it seems like every book by her that I read the synopsis, it's just immediately something I want to read. So let me know if you've read this one. So the next one that I have is The Forbidden by FR Tallis. And as you know, I've bought a couple of other FR Tallis books, haven't read them yet. So really hoping I'm going to vibe with this author. But just the cover alone really drew me in. And this is about a doctor who goes to a tropical island to try to find a cure for tropical diseases. So the place is called Saint Sebastian, and while he's there, he starts to see ritualistic murders happening. And when he comes back home, he brings with him an unspeakable evil. And it says, just the last sentence on the back here, it says, "Is the good doctor slowly succumbing to madness, or has he really passed through the gates of hell?" So this, I think, is going to go right in with just this love of religious horror that I've been on lately, and I've bought a lot of kind of possession books and things that have to do with hell and evil and that sort of thing. So yeah, but primarily I bought it because of the cover, honestly. So the next book that I picked up is The Demonologist by Andrew Pyper, and this is a Canadian author, and of course, just by the title, again, fits right into this kick that I'm on. So this follows a man named David Ullman, and he's a professor, but he's also the world's leading authority on demonic literature. But he himself, in his own personal life, is a huge skeptic. So one day, a mysterious woman shows up, and she wants him to go to Venice with her so she can show him phenomena. So I guess that kind of ties in with, you know, him being the leading authority on demonic literature, so it has something to do with that. And he turns her down because he doesn't really believe in any of this, but she leaves him a ticket and a place where, you know, she's gonna be if he decides to change his mind. So he takes his 12-year-old daughter and decides, hey, let's go, it's Venice, let's go on a trip. And he figures, you know, nothing is going to come out of it anyway. And it just says here, he finds himself in the midst of a mystery, possessions, and exorcisms, and may lose his daughter forever. So sounds like a really great thriller with a little bit of demonology thrown in there. So again, right up my alley, and of course, always looking to support a Canadian author. So next up is Under a Watchful Eye by Adam Nevill. And you guys know I read my first Adam Nevill book this year and completely loved it, and I've heard a lot about his other works as well. Not so much about this one. I haven't heard anything about this one actually. So this is a supernatural thriller, and it follows a man named Seb who seems to have a past that he would rather forget. But Seb is being watched by a mysterious shadowy figure, and it says that It shatters his idyllic life and plunges him into paranoia, and then things from his past start coming up that he's trying to forget. So seems like a little bit of a psychological, supernatural thriller going on here. Again, I've been so impressed with Adam Nevill's writing, so I'm hoping that this one is going to be really, really good. Haven't heard anything about it yet, but eager to get to it. So next up is The Devil Rides Out by Dennis Wheatley. And the synopsis on the back of this just drew me in immediately. This is an author and a book that I've heard nothing about, so let me know if you've read this. But it says, the aristocratic Duc de Richelieu faces new sinister challenges in this macabre tale of the dark arts. When his good friend Simon Aaron's naive curiosity is tested, the Duke, along with his ever-patient friends Rex Van Ryan and Richard Eaton, must intricately plot a means of both physical and spiritual rescue. But with Van Ryan's affections for a beautiful woman caught in a web of Satanists and Eaton's ongoing skepticism, they all risk being brought to the verge of madness through dabbling with powers of evil. So again, fitting right in with this kick that I'm on lately, so this sounds super, super good. Again, haven't heard anything about this, so going into it a little bit blind. Hopefully it lives up to what I'm hoping it is. So next up, of course, it wouldn't be a book haul for me without some RL Stine. So we have Bitten, which is a bind up of Dangerous Girls and The Taste of Night. So this is a vampire novel that follows two sisters who come back to town with a dark secret, so I would assume that they've been turned into vampires, and their secret is getting harder and harder to hide. And it says here, as one sister descends into darkness, the other must find a way to save her and herself. Who will live to see the glow of the next full moon? Which sister will survive? And so I was a little bit click happy because I had put this one in my cart, and then I had also put this one in my cart, and this is The Taste of Night, which is already in here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this one aside and include it in the next giveaway that we have. So this is a bargain copy, so there's a small mark, but it's new. So I'll just set this aside for whenever we decide to do another giveaway. So next up we have some short story collections. So first is Hex Life, Wicked New Tales of Witchery. So I primarily bought this book because I love the cover, but this is all short stories, obviously, that has to do with witchcraft. And I've heard a little bit about this book. Kind of the reviews that I've heard is that the stories don't really live up to what they were expecting. But since I got this as a bargain copy, and like I said, I absolutely love the cover, I wanted to give it a try. Let me know down below if you've read this one and what did you think of the stories. I love short story collections. I think they're great just to have one story from beginning to end when you're, you know, sitting down in one sitting. And they're also great to get out of a reading slump as well. So happy to have this one. And it says on the back here, filled with gore and glory. 18 tales of witchcraft from the mistresses of magic, and then it lists all of the authors on the back here. So actually Tananarive Due is in here, and a whole bunch of other ones, Alma Katsu, Theodora Goss, and other really well-known authors. So really hoping that this one is going to live up to my expectation, even though I haven't heard the greatest reviews of it. And next up, the other short story collection I got is A Book of Horrors, edited by Stephen Jones. And this one is another one that has quite the list of authors in here. So we have Ramsey Campbell, Caitlin R. Kiernan, Stephen King, Richard Matheson, many, many more. And it says on the back here, A Book of Horrors is the most critically acclaimed horror anthology of recent years, an eclectic gathering of the very best and most terrifying fiction from around the world. And honestly, this is another one that I just got hooked in by the cover. So I mean, it's a bonus that it sounds really, really cool, but that cover is just absolutely amazing. And then the next one on here is way out of the park for, you know, what we've been talking about. It's called Iron, Fire, and Ice: The Real History That Inspired Game of Thrones. And of course, with me having a degree in history, I just had to pick this up. It sounded so interesting. And of course, I'm a huge lover of the Game of Thrones series. Not sure if that man is ever going to finish those damn books, but with what I know about the Game of Thrones series, it'll be really interesting to see the tie-in with actual historical events. So this sounds really, really cool. So this is by Ed West. And so hopefully there's some familiar stories in here from what I know from my own studies and how it ties into the whole Song of Ice and Fire universe. So that's it for the adult horror that I have. So next I'm going to go over all of the middle grade and YA horror and spooky books that I found. I will have timestamps for all of the books down below because I know for myself I like to skip through sometimes and just learn about the books that I'm interested in. So if you don't want to hear about the YA or the middle grade horror, then, you know, that's it for the adult books. But if you do want to stick around and hear about the YA and the middle grade, we're going to go through those next. Okay, so first of all, I guess I just realized that the RL Stine probably should have been in this pile rather than the adult pile, but that was just a mix-up, so I'm sure you guys will forgive me. So the first one we have here is Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. And I'm not sure if you guys can tell the neon colors on the cover of this book, but it's just absolutely fabulous. So this is kind of a Scooby-Doo inspired fiction, and it takes place in 1990, and it follows the members of a group of teen detectives called the Bitten Summer Detective Club. And so this group of people are actually grown up and they've kind of gone their separate ways. But back in 1977, they had this detective club. So very much like Mystery Inc. from Scooby-Doo. So like I said, now they're grown up, they haven't seen each other. And apparently there was a last case that they all did that I don't know if it went awry, but something happened apparently. And the Goodreads synopsis here says, "The time has come to uncover the source of their nightmares and return to where it all began in 1977. This time, it better not be a man in a mask. The real monsters are waiting." So like I said, kind of inspired by Scooby-Doo, but it sounds like there is actually kind of an evil out there. So another one that I was pulled in by the cover and all of these brilliant colors here. And of course, I'm hoping for a little bit of nostalgia from, you know, what I know from the late 70s, because that was before my time, but also from the 1990s as well. And next up we have Campfire by Shawn Sarles. And I don't know if you guys can pick it up, but the eyes on the cover art here kind of glow a little bit. And it's kind of freaky actually when you're not expecting it. So this follows a young girl named Maddie Davenport, and she and her family and friends are off on a camping trip. And of course, when you camp, you have campfires and tell ghost stories. But their guide tells them a story of a killer that lives out in the woods who kills campers, and he marks them with antlers that he carves into their foreheads. And then apparently the next day, this story comes true for Maddie and her family. They're lost in the woods and they're being stalked by a killer. So another one that the cover drew me in first, but this sounds like a really fantastic story. I have another book by this author, Help for the Haunted. I haven't read it yet, so I'm hoping that this one is going to be good, but anything to do with camping and the woods and the seclusion definitely I think is going to be right up my alley. And the next one is The Sacrifice Box by Martin Stewart. And I hadn't seen anybody speak about this book up until about last weekend, which I already had this copy. But Bear over on A2 Brody spoke about this book in a collaboration video that he did with a bunch of other booktubers that was on Jordaline's channel. And they said that this book is absolutely fantastic. And it's funny because this one was in the young adult section, but from what they were talking about, this seems to be pretty gruesome. So it says on the inside cover here, it says, In the summer of 1982, 5 friends discover an ancient stone box hidden deep in the woods. They seal inside of it treasured objects from their childhoods, and they make a vow: never come to the box alone, never open it after dark, never take back your sacrifice. 4 years later, a series of strange and terrifying events begins to unfold. Mirrors inexplicably shattering, inanimate objects coming to life, otherworldly crows thirsting for blood. Someone broke the rules of the box, and now everyone has to pay. And there's just a little illustration on the inside here, and we have like a cassette tape and some other objects. So I'm really hoping that this one is going to be just as fantastic as Bear was talking about, and just from the synopsis I want all of those nostalgic feels as well. So it sounds absolutely fantastic. So I think I want to get to this one pretty soon, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. And next up we have A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting by Joe Ballerini. And this one, I mean, anything to do with kind of that Babysitter's Club sort of feel, but also this talks about, it happens during Halloween time. So just from that there, I had to go ahead and pick this one up. So this is the first in a series, and it says that it is a hilarious series about a secret society of babysitters who protect kids from the monsters that really do live under their beds. So this particular story follows Kelly, who is a first-time babysitter, and she has to forego the Halloween party that she wanted to go to so she can go babysit. But the baby that she is sitting for ends up kidnapped by minions from the boogeyman, and she has to try to get the kid back, obviously. And it says, A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting is full of tricks, treats, and terrifying twists. So like I said, this is the first in a series, so if this one goes well, then I'll consider getting more books in this series also. So along the same lines, we have The Babysitter's Coven by Kate Williams. I've heard a little bit about this book. This also is the first in a series. So this says that it is Adventures in Babysitting meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that's all I needed to know. I was totally hooked. But it does say, in this funny, action-packed novel about a coven of witchy babysitters who realize their calling to protect the innocent and save the world from an onslaught of evil. So totally girly cover, completely out of my realm, but this sounded so good, and I think this will be a great palate cleanser from anything that's too heavy. And that's why I absolutely love middle grade and kind of early YA books, is, you know, there's not a whole lot of gruesome gore or sexual content or anything like that. And yeah, I just love picking up one of these after I've read something really heavy. So again, if this one goes well, then I'll consider getting more in the series. And here we have another girly looking book. It is Undead Girl Gang by Lily Anderson. And so this is another sort of witchy girly book, and we follow 2 girls, Mila and Riley, and they're absolute best friends, totally inseparable, but they try to make their own fun dabbling in Riley's favorite pastime, which is amateur witchcraft. But when some of the mean girls at their school turn up dead, there's a rumor going around that Riley was in a suicide pact with the girls, but of course the 2 main characters don't believe that. And in order to find out what's going on, Riley actually brings the dead girls back to life to see if they can find their murderers. But unfortunately, the girls that they bring back can't remember anything about their deaths. And just reading a little bit from Goodreads here. Now, with only 7 days until the spell wears off and the girls return to their graves, Mila must wrangle the distracted group of undead teens and work fast to discover who their murderer is before the killer strikes again. So kind of, you know, middle grade or early YA kind of thriller, murder thriller with, you know, a little bit of supernatural stuff going on here, some witchy vibes, and that's all I needed to know. Like I said, super girly book. Normally I would steer clear of something that looks like this, but the synopsis just sounded so fun. So really happy to have this one for the collection. So next up we have a tiny little hardcover, Literally Disturbed, More Tales to Keep You Up at Night, Volume 2. And this is by a New York Times bestselling author and Edgar Award winner, Ben H. Winters. So this is just a little short story collection. I would assume it's kind of in the vein of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So just really super short little stories, and it's fully illustrated. So it's definitely something you can sit down and read kind of in an afternoon. I can see myself picking this one up just as a quick read around spooky season. So I think I'll save this one until then, and hopefully it, you know, kind of has that sort of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark vibe, and I can get the same kind of feelings out of this one. So next up was a really cute looking book called The Haunting of Henry Davis by Kathryn Siebel. So this is just a really short middle grade novel that follows a young girl named Barbara Ann and her friends. So Henry Davis is a new kid that comes to their school, and he's a bit odd. He's kind of small and pale, and Barbara Ann and her friends kind of, you know, make friends with him, and they find out that he is being haunted by a ghost named Edgar. So the whole gang is trying to figure out who Edgar is, why he's haunting Henry Davis, and kind of how they can help this ghost find peace. So again, this sounds like another really great little palette cleanser. I'm not expecting a whole lot out of it, but it sounded really cool. And I mean, you can't beat the, you know, seance sort of looking cover on here. So I think this one is just going to be a cute, fun little short read. So next up we have The Missing Season by Gillian French, and again another great cover here. Haven't heard anything about this book, and the author doesn't sound familiar either, but again this is a great sounding little adventure. So in a small town named Pendle, there are kids that are going missing, and the other children in the town think that there is a creature behind this called the Mumbler. And then a young girl named Claire shows up. She's the new girl in town, and she doesn't believe in any of this Mumbler crap. But it says, as Halloween gets closer and tensions build in the town, it's hard to shake the feeling that there really is something dark and dangerous in their town. So another book that takes place in spooky season. I'm starting to gear up for looking forward to Halloween shopping and getting ready for spooky season myself. I try to extend it as much as possible, so anything that takes place around Halloween and there's some sort of dark and mysterious creature that's taking children away from a little town, I'm all here for it. So again, haven't heard about this book before, don't know anything about the author, so let me know if you've read this one. So next up we have The Haunted by Danielle Vega, and this is the author, of course, of the Merciless series, which everybody that I know that has read it says that it's pretty good. But for this book, I didn't hear great things about it, but I wanted to pick it up and give it a go myself. This is another one that's the first in a series, and it says that this is a new paranormal novel about dark family secrets, deep-seated vengeance, and the horrifying truth that evil often lurks in the most unlikeliest of places. So this follows a young girl named Hendrix Becker O'Malley, and she and her family are the new people in town, and they move into a house that local legend says that it's haunted, basically. So they move into a small town, they're the new people, they move into the haunted house. We all know the story, but it turns out that spooky things are actually starting to happen in the house, and Hendrix and another neighbor boy are trying to figure out what's going on with the haunting and to try to take down the ghosts. So familiar storyline. Like I said, haven't heard stellar things about this, but wanted to give it a go on my own just because The Merciless had gotten so much buzz. I haven't read that one either, but yeah, if this one is good, just like all of the others, I'll keep going with the series. So next up I have Haunting the Deep by Adriana Mather, and this is the second book in the How to Hang a Witch series, and I wanted to go ahead and pick this one up because I think the other one is going to be really good, and the synopsis of this sounds really cool. So it says, Samantha Mather never imagined she'd find herself at the center of a new curse, but with increasingly vivid dreams of the Titanic tormenting her at night, and unexplained objects and haunting visions materializing during the day, Sam's forced to accept the terrifying truth that the Titanic is calling to her. So that just sounded really mysterious to me. I love the synopsis of the first book, and it takes place in Salem, and she is a direct descendant of one of the witch hunters. So I think this series just sounds really, really cool. I haven't heard anybody else who has actually read either one of these, hoping that they're going to live up to what I think they're going to be. And again, let me know if you've read this one. So I have two books here by Joseph Bruchac, or Bruchac. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. I'm really sorry. But these, I haven't read anything by this author, but these two books seem to revolve around Indigenous legends and history. And so the first one is called The Dark Pond, and this follows a young boy named Arnie, and it says, after he feels a mysterious pull drawing him towards a dark, shadowy pond in the woods, Arnie looks to old Native American tales for guidance about the dangerous monster that's lurking. So love anything to do with kind of Indigenous legends and history and fables and all of that kind of thing. So this one sounds really, really cool. It's just a tiny little book. And then the other one is called Night Wings by the same author. And this follows a young man named Paul. And Paul has always believed in the power of dreams. And he starts having dreams of a really fearsome winged creature. And the dreams are starting to become really real. And it says here, he looks to the wisdom of his Abenaki ancestor stories to guide his footsteps, but nothing can prepare him for what he's about to encounter. So again, kind of revolves around Indigenous legends and stories. So this one is also very, very tiny, quick read, and I think this one sounds really interesting. And then the last book I have, of course, I had to have something vintage in here. So we have Scavenger Hunt by Christopher Pike. And I got this one off of eBay for a really great price. And what I'm finding is I started out buying a lot of like lots of books. So, you know, a lot would have 6, 8, 10, 12 books in it. Some Christopher Pike, some RL Stine, probably some point horror. But what I'm finding now is because I bought like lots of books, it's getting a little bit harder to find one-offs and not having to buy duplicates if I buy other lots of books. So I was glad to find this one. It's in pretty good condition. And this one was printed in 1989. So I think it's in pretty fantastic condition considering how old it is. And it says in the back here, school was almost over. A secretive club on campus had organized a scavenger hunt for the entire senior class. In small groups, and with the help of cleverly planted clues, the kids are led throughout the city and then deep into the nighttime desert. The sponsoring club has promised a wonderful prize for the first group to reach the goal of the hunt. But for Carl Timmons, a troubled young man who has recently lost his best friend, the hunt will become a nightmare. Led astray by his love of a strangely beautiful girl, he will wander far from the others and back into a haunted past, where the line between the living and the dead is blurred and broken. So I don't think, but I'm pretty sure I didn't read this one when I was a kid. So this one is going to be a brand new story that I dive into. And like I said before, I've just really been enjoying going back and reading these stories again. There's just something about 80s and 90s horror that books today just don't have. I don't know if that's me and it's just the nostalgia of that period, but just the way they're written I think is just something that's a little bit different. So I like going back and sticking one of these in every now and again amongst all of the new books that I'm reading. So glad to have that one for the collection as well. So there you guys go. That's everything I have for this month's book haul. Please, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below because you guys know that I love chatting with you. But until next time, stay spooky, everybody. Bye.